Okay guys, welcome back to Pentatonic Blues Scale Mastery Volume 5. This is the last volume, so we're going to connect the entire neck today. Before we get into that though, the majority of you have yet to subscribe, so don't forget to subscribe and smash that notification bell right in the face. So once again, keeping this in C major and its relative A minor, the fifth and final pattern that we have to learn is going to be located in the 12th position. We could also play this pattern in the open position, but let's learn it in its movable form so that it's applicable to all keys. And the pentatonic scale is going to look like this. Okay, and if we put the blues note in, it's going to look like this. And then we could also view that from the minor root. That was viewing it from the C, the major root, and then from the minor, we'd view it as the A. So then that pattern, the intervals would change and look like that if we were viewing it from A minor. So let's quickly cover our chords and our arpeggios for that position, just like we've done in all the other volumes. C, this is just a basic C chord, but if we played that with our last three fingers, barred those open strings, we could play that same chord up there at the 12th fret. So this pentatonic pattern relates to that C major chord. And the minor chord is just as easy, A minor. If we rearranged and just played our basic minor bar chord, slide it up to the 12th fret, you've got your A minor chord at the 12th fret. So if you're going to view this pattern as major, you've got a C major chord form within it. And if you're going to view it as minor, you have an A minor chord form within it. Those arpeggios, nice and easy. You're very familiar with these chord forms. The arpeggios are virtually the same. We can start on our major arpeggio with our C root, and we're going to go up. Just add that G up there, the fifth. And you can also add the G and another third there. So the full thing will look like this. Okay, and our minor arpeggio starting on A is going to look like this. And we can put that A up on the top of it again. It's not in the pattern, but it kind of completes the sound of that arpeggio. And then we can put a E underneath that as well. That's the fifth of our chord. So our full arpeggio could look like this. There we go. There's your fifth pattern. Now, how can we get this pattern under our fingers? Yeah, I've covered ways in every single volume. So, just keep going up and down until it gets smooth, work on those sequences. Another thing I wanted to quickly throw at you today, though, was interval patterns. It's very beneficial to work on scales with intervals. So instead of just practicing sequences and very scalar type things, start working on intervals. We can do fourths or fifths, for instance. Now, because the pentatonic pattern is missing a couple of notes, you can't strictly do true fourths or true fifths, because whenever you reach a certain note, it's not there available to you. For instance, if we were to try to play a fifth, well, if we started on our E, a fifth from that would be B, but B is not in the pentatonic pattern. So you just have to go and grab the note that's closest to what a fifth would be. So if you were to practice a fifth type interval sequence with this pattern, it would look like this. And always remember to reverse everything and come down. Okay, so as you can see, they're not all true fifths, but it's keeping that pattern, that relationship very close as we can to stay within that scale. And you can do the same thing with fourths. Once again, if with fourths, they're not going to be true perfect fourths all the time. For instance, you have no choice but to go from C to E, which is a major third, because F isn't in our pattern, in our scale, so you can't do a perfect fourth. But again, you can just do whatever is closest within the scale. So if we were to do fourths, it would look like this. And you can go down. Okay. Now, I can go on and on and on. Maybe I'll do a whole video on how to start practicing interval patterns to get them under your fingers so you can start throwing them into your solos. But just doing what I just showed you right now is a very good start. You can get a little creative with it too. If you could go maybe 2 up and then 1 down. And then reverse that, you go 2 down and 1 up. And then do that, keep taking that idea. And that'll get those intervals under your fingers. And then you're starting to play the scale in as many different ways as you can with as many different tools as you're going to need when you start soloing. Now, let's string all these patterns together and connect the entire fretboard. Let's do our C majors all across the fretboard. We're going to do our scale patterns, our chord forms, and our arpeggios. Okay, so let's start with our chord forms. And there is no key and no position in the fretboard that is any longer unavailable to us. We can play freely across the neck in any key. So we can start in our open position with a C chord. We can play C in the A shape, and in the G shape, E shape, D shape, back to the C shape. And it just repeats at that point. And then these get kind of unplayable way up here, but you should still visualize them. And then, you know, the E and the D shape. Then we can start stringing our arpeggios together. We won't string the entire fretboard together with arpeggios. You can do that on your own, but we'll just go from our A shape here to our A shape up here. And you're free to do this in every other key, and you've got everything available to you now and all the tools at your disposal to do this. So let's do our C major arpeggios starting on C on the 3rd fret of the 5th string. I'm gonna go like this. And let's reverse that so that we get practice going both directions. And we're going to have to do the same with our A minors. A minor chord forms are going to look like this. A minor in the G form. We could start here too. A minor in the G form. A minor in the E form. D form. C minor form. And then A minor in the A minor form, and A minor in the G minor form, and so on. So we'll just stick with the same patterns that we used for the C though. So we'll start in that same position and end in that same position. That's going to look like this. And let's quickly cover our scale patterns now. Once again, we'll start with that pattern that relates to the C in the A shape and A minor in the G minor shape. And we'll just start with that one because it's the lowest pattern that we have that's movable. And we'll play through all 5 patterns and end at that same pattern an octave up. So here we go. And let's reverse it so we have practice going both ways. Well, that's it for Pentatonic Blues Scale Mastery. I hope you've learned a ton. And just remember that if you ever need a refresher, these videos are always here for you. If you've been applying these ideas in your own playing and you have any clips of yourself, then just link to those clips in the comments and I'll zip over and watch them. I'd love to see it. So I'm Tim. I'll see you next time.